informative. Because you know, as the president of a junior mining company, there's quite a lot I can't divulge to you, in case I be seen to be guilty of promoting, or rather of over-promoting. What I can tell you is that there has been a whole new and gargantuan mineralized belt discovered. It has been named the Ring of Fire because it is circular, and it took eons of heat from the core of the earth to get the minerals there. The fact that Richard Nemes, the former CEO of Noront, favors black shirts, cowboy boots, and Western music probably also had something to do with it, because Noront made the nickel discovery that really kicked things off up there just a little more than 2 years ago. Many of you here know Mo Levine for his work in creating Lac des Îles Big Pit. There is not, in our opinion, a better man to be the Vice President of Exploration for us with what is about to unfold around here. Mo has a brief slideshow for you to help to inform us all. After that, I will try to help you picture what the possibilities might be. Mo?
Chromium is a stainless in stainless steel. Next slide, please. Foundries add ferrochrome to iron and other metals to produce 2,300 varieties of stainless steel containing 8 to 28% chromium. Next. Ferrochrome, which is an alloy of iron and chromium, is produced by smelting the mineral chromite. This is core of the Big Daddy chromite deposit, and chromite is a mineral that consists of a chrome iron oxide that also contains magnesium and aluminum. Next slide, please. Most of the chromium reserves on the planet are in South Africa. You'll notice that there are no reserves in North America, and I'd also like to point out that there's one mine operating in Finland. In South Africa, the chromite seams are 1 to 2 meters thick. They're shallow dipping, and they're mined using very labor-intensive methods. While in Finland, the chromite seams are standing on end, and the red is the trace of the chromite seam in this particular operation, making them amenable to open pit mining. This pit was put in production in 1968. It operated until 2006, and today, all of the mining is conducted underground using low-cost bulk mineable methods. Next slide, please. On the right, there's a purple stripe bound by green. That's the chromite horizon at the Kemi mine. It averages 40 meters in thickness. It was mined over a length of 3 kilometers, and the grade was 26% chrome oxide. In comparison to the Big Daddy on the next slide, our results are closer to 40%. The Big Daddy is close to 50% richer than the Kemi mine in Finland. To date, we've drilled the deposit down to a depth of 300 meters, and on surface, next slide please, we've traced the Big Daddy on our property, which is the joint venture between us, Spider Resources, and Free West Resources. That's the yellow block in the center. We've traced the deposit over a length of 1.3 kilometers. That's the black stripe bound by the purple. And as it goes to the northeast, it crosses into the Free West property, where it continues for an additional 2.8 kilometers. And Free West found an additional deposit up there, which they labeled the Black Label. Next slide, please. We see the Kemi mine, which belongs to a company called Outokumpu, as a model for our deposit, in that they mine from the pit, they transport the ore to a metallurgical site at Tornio. And here, next slide please, they have a fully integrated metallurgical site consisting of a concentrator, a smelter, and foundries. We're not ready yet to make decisions on where our operations are going to be. They could be at the mine site, they could be near Nakina, they could be anywhere at this moment. This ore is very transportable, but we do know that we need a railroad to get the ore out from Webakwe down to the CN main line. And this is why we initiated last summer a program to study a rail alignment, and for this, next slide please, we hired Kreck and Ojard and Associates from Duluth to study the alternate routes that were available. And to do this, they had a good look at the soil conditions and the topography, the proximity to parks, number of water crossings, and spent a lot of time flying back and forth, several weeks in fact, and spending quite a bit of time on the ground looking at these routes. And we have come up with a winner. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, it didn't go into this bog. This is probably the biggest impediment in building a railroad up north. It's not that we can't push a railroad through a bog, and that's fine if your bog is 2 miles in diameter and you only have to haul fill for 2 miles. But once you're in the James Bay lowland, you're in it for hundreds of miles, and there's no fill material available at all. So to the largest extent, we were able to avoid this, next slide please, by staying close to the height of land. This is a digital elevation map. The green is the muskeg of the James Bay lowlands. The reddish, brownish colors are the higher ground. And you could see a red trace going from Arrowland northwards towards Webequie. That's our preferred route for the railroad at the minute. That's the area that's being studied. And it stayed on high ground for most of the length until we dived into the bog at the north end. But fortunately, next slide please, Mother Nature favored us. We found within the bog a few small ridges of higher ground, sand and gravel that protruded above the bog, and we were able to pull the railroad over that ground right up to the mine site. This particular map here, the gray area, is all the muskeg. There's very little opportunity out there to build a railroad, and we built it probably as far east as you can. As you can see, the blue and brown and pink areas are the high ground where there is gravel and bedrock that we can use for fill, while in the gray areas there is none. Next slide, please. This is just a close-up. There's little red splotches that are so narrow that they're hidden by the line that defines the railroad. Those are small sandy ridges that we managed to pull the railroad over. Next slide, please. So what have we done so far? We've done quite a bit of drilling at the Big Daddy to define it. Next slide. We've done scoping level metallurgical studies to indicate that a high value chromite concentrate can be produced. We've done baseline environmental studies. Next slide, please. We've done baseline environmental studies starting last summer. We've begun consultation with the Aboriginal communities. Cliffs Natural Resources, the largest iron ore company in North America, has purchased 20% of KWG. Cliffs has chosen KWG to be its strategic partner in developing a chromite mining operation and a rail link to the new smelter. Canada Chrome Corporation was incorporated as a subsidiary of KWG to be the operating company, and Cliffs has completed the purchase of Free West Resources. That happened 5 days ago, and the railroad engineering and data acquisition is underway. Next slide, please. Keep going, 5 slides, please. Next slide, please. Next, next, next. Thank you. What's going on now is we're going to embark on consultation on community-based regional land use planning. Next. Data acquisition, analysis, and submitting ourselves to an environmental assessment is in front of us as well. We'll have preliminary design and engineering on the railroad. Next. We're going to complete a resource estimation and do a mining operation pre-feasibility study. We have to organize our ownership and corporately, and also we have to do financing.